Hello and welcome to Space here from the Paris International Air Show. This is a major rendezvous for the space sector. Later in the show, I'm talking to the head of ESA and the head of NASA. But first of all, I managed to catch up with ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet, who's just come back from 6 months in space. This was Thomas Pesquet's first big public event since landing, and he and French President Emmanuel Macron drew quite a crowd. This, while the astronaut is still in the recovery phase after losing muscle and bone mass in space. Thomas, you're back. You're here. How do you feel physically, emotionally?
I feel great. I mean, coming back to Earth is hard at the beginning, but after a couple hours, you start readapting so fast. And that's amazing how the human body can adapt to living in space and then readapt back to living on Earth.
You miss floating because that looks just awesome when you see the photos.
Yeah, I do miss floating because that's just so easy. It's like when you're in space, it's similar to having superpowers. You can fly around, float around, you can move heavy loads with just a finger or two, and then when you're back to Earth, you lose all your superpowers.
Let's talk about some of the science that you did, because you're up there for science. Was there one experiment that you absolutely loved?
There's a couple that I've really liked, and one of them was probably one of the most painful. You had to push as hard as you could against a motor that would measure your force output and the torque in your muscles.
You've just come back from 6 months in space. When people talk about going to Mars, it's at least a year. Would you be prepared to do that now?
I think it's pretty doable. The hard part is the return, really. When I was back on Earth with the gravity, I couldn't do anything for a couple hours. So obviously when you get to Mars, you want to be able to respond to an emergency. So you'll need to work out quite a bit during the trip. Psychologically, you'll have to be prepared too, because you'll completely lose the view of the Earth. On the space station, we're still around the Earth, we fly around the Earth, so you're not too far away from home. On a Mars mission, it's going to be a completely different deal, so people have to be prepared for it also in their minds.
Aiming for Mars may not be on everyone's mind here in Paris, but for those in the space sector, it's the common goal. Both ESA and NASA are sending rovers there in 2020, and the head of NASA was in Europe to discuss plans for the Red Planet. NASA talks a lot about the journey to Mars, eventually getting to the point of sending humans there. But you've had a lot of success with rovers. Why not just stick to sending rovers? Isn't it safer just to send rovers?
Well, we think it's an and. We think we need both, rovers and people. The rovers go there and kind of scout. They're our scouts. They tell us what we need to know when we take humans. And we think that taking the humans is what we want to do from an exploration perspective. Pushing humans' presence into deep space is kind of written in our DNA.
When do you think we'll see humans on Mars?
Yeah, well, we're pushing to get humans in the vicinity of Mars in the 2030s. That would be our goal going forward. We've got a lot of work to do on the technologies and the systems that we need to build. We'll do that with our partners. That's one of the things we're here to talk to them about, is where can they bring their skills and their capabilities to bear in that journey. We'll spend some time around the moon checking out systems that we need to take to go to Mars while we're still close to home. Make sure those systems are working well.
Yes, talking about going around the moon, that's the Orion capsule, right? And so when's the first flight going to be with men and women inside it going around the moon?
Yeah, our first crewed mission is we're thinking 2022 right now. And so that's a goal for us to get there. We've got an uncrewed mission in 2019 that we'll be flying soon. So we're excited about that opportunity. And again, great collaboration with our partners here. We think there's going to be even more collaboration once we get that up and flying.
Partnerships between space agencies are essential to making big missions happen, and that inevitably means politics comes into play. When I caught up with ESA Director General Jan Werner, I began by asking him about a major political question of our time: Brexit.
Brexit is something between the United Kingdom and the European Union. We as ESA, as an intergovernmental organization, are a little bit out of that discussion. Europe is not just the borders of the European Union, and I think the European Union needs UK and the UK needs the European Union. So I'm looking forward to a good solution.
What about the companies, though, that are operating in the UK? Are they going to have bases, open up new bases in Europe?
This is not what I can answer today, but I can just say in the ESA environment, this is not a request. In the ESA environment, we have also Switzerland and Norway as non-EU members, so we know how to deal with it.
You have promoted a concept of Space 4.0, trying to talk to citizens here at the Paris Air Show. What do the normal people say to you? What do the citizens say to you about space? What do they want?
That's very interesting. If we ask really citizens, what do you think about space? First of all of them are inspired. This is very clear. And they see, and this is for me very interesting, they see very clearly the advantage of space activities for their daily life.
What are they asking you for? What kinds of missions do they want?
They are asking us frequently for risky missions. For instance, to go to other planets like ExoMars or to go to a comet. These are missions which people very much like. They also say the inspiration you give makes us also able to dream about something in the future, and then space has suddenly more than just a financial issue, it has a societal issue, a societal benefit.
Alongside the big space agencies, the space industry uses the show for key announcements. The rebranded Ariane Group showed progress on the new Ariane 6 rocket and revealed their engineers are also working on a reusable launcher for 2030. Italy's Avio signed a deal for 3 launches of new versions of its Vega rocket, and Thales Alenia Space was pushing its Stratobus high-altitude autonomous airship concept as a satellite supplement. And now away from the buzz of the air show and to our regular mini-series Legends of Space. And this month we've had the chance to catch up with Soviet space pioneer Alexei Leonov, who in 1965 became the first person to spacewalk.
I stepped out. I held on, and I don't remember saying these words, but they were recorded. I said, "The Earth is round after all." And then the silence. I could hear my heart beating, my heavy breathing, and nothing else. Then a problem appears. I feel that my fingers are no longer touching the end of my gloves, my feet hanging freely, and I'm thinking, how am I going to get back? And I realize that the only way is to reduce the pressure. Without saying anything, I just released pressure by 0.27, fully realizing that I put myself in the zone where nitrogen starts boiling in blood. My biggest impression is these words. The universe is infinite in time and space. The very black sky, black as coal, bright, unflickering stars, and so many of them. And as they say in the film, and then there was silence.
That's all we've got time for in this programme, but next month we have a unique profile of Italian astronaut Paolo Nespoli. In the meantime, keep up to date with other news from the universe in our space blog on Euronews.com.